St. Bonaventure Catholic Church in Huntington Beach, California presents
Rebuilt and Renewed,
Bringing the Word Home.
Thanks for listening in to Rebuilt and Renewed. I'm so excited that this month of July we're going to devote to family life and a reflection on family life. It's one of the things that's been very close to my heart for the last maybe 4 or so years in my seminary formation, and also in my time as a deacon and as a priest. Actually, my motto for the priesthood was faith and family. And those are the two greatest gifts that God has given me in my life, and I'm so happy that I get to share those with other people and that my family continues to be a constant source of inspiration and encouragement in my own life. This month, we invite on 2 guests that I'm very excited to have on today that I think we're going to learn a lot from and be able to just enter this mystery of God's love revealed through family life and marriage in a way that we may not have had a chance to think about before. So I welcome on Pam Hurwitz and Brad Strom with us today, and we'll be continuing on this reflection. We'll break it up into a series of reflections for the whole month of July. I'm super excited because they are very committed to their lives as ministers to the family, as parents, as people in the trenches, and I'm just so excited to share this hour with them. It's a little over an hour with them, and to allow their lives to come and to help us reflect on ours. So I just want to introduce them a little bit here, and then I'll let them introduce themselves. Pam Hurwitz was my youth minister in high school, way back in the day, and then before I became a youth minister. And she was actually the first one I told about my desire to become a minister in the church. And so from that point on, the Lord took me by the hand and led me here. And I think without that moment, I definitely wouldn't be a priest today. So I'm very grateful for that. And she's now a herald of the good news of family life in our diocese. So happy to have her here. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe tell us what you're doing now. And
Yes. So what a great blessing that was to get to know you and to watch you develop into the wonderful young man that you are. I began my ministry life at San Antonio Parish, and I was youth minister there for 10 years. And that was just an incredible, incredible chapter of my life. And then I was invited to come to the diocesan offices, and I worked for our Department of Youth and Young Adults. And I spent 8 years really supporting youth ministers in our 62 parishes. And I, in the midst of that, was raising my own 2 children. I have a daughter, her name is Jillian, and she is 27. And I have a son, his name is Joseph, and he is 24. And as I was raising them and working with other people's children, I was realizing how little support, information there was for parents like myself in helping me really talk to my kids about their faith and practice it in my home. And so I realized if I was looking for this and I couldn't find it, that maybe it didn't exist. And so I began to meet with parents, and I began to basically start talking to parents and kind of giving the talks that I needed to hear as a parent, writing and giving those talks and kind of opening that up for people. And so for the last about 4 years, I have been speaking in many, many of our parishes, and I've even gone into Los Angeles and San Diego now. And just talking to parents about how to notice God in the midst of their everyday family life, and what that means, and what that looks like, and how to support them in that. And that has been the opening of this whole beautiful new path for me. And so I'm excited to be here and to share with you about what that kind of looks like. So thank you for having me.
happy to. And it's always been a dream of mine to continue ministering with you as a priest as well, and that dream's coming true. So it's exciting, especially in this area of family life. All of us have a family, and that's the one thing we all share. And we may have had a great family experience, we may have had a not so great family experience, but all of us are the product of a family. Yeah. And I think it's such a great investment because it's the one thing we all share. and our faith is also the one thing we all share. And bringing these two things together in our church is, I really think, what our mission of our church is all about. So excited to have you on, Pam. Thanks for being here. Brad, welcome.
Thank you, Father Tim.
We officially met yesterday in person. Not yesterday, on Saturday.
Saturday,
which was exciting, at Father Mark Mary's first Mass.
Which was amazing.
And thank you for praying for me for all these years. You had one of those bookmarks, was it? Vocation bookmarks?
Yeah.
Which are pretty cool.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And so you have an opportunity to pray for our different seminarians, and then all of a sudden we become priests. And I'm looking forward to developing a relationship with you. And I know you've worked with Pam as she's done some work down at Queen of Angels, which is where you're a parishioner there, with my good friend Father Brandon Dang.
Yes.
So very excited.
Shout out to Father Brandon.
Shout out to Father Brandon. We'll have to have him listen. That'll be good, And good friends with Father Dewey as well, which he did his internship year here, Father Dewey Lee. So a lot of the people here know him as well. So welcome, Brad. And I know you're in the trenches. Father, how many children do you have?
We have 4 young kids.
4 young kids. Glory to God. Faithful dad with 4 young kids.
Beautiful family.
It's kind of a rare situation these days, and I'm so happy to see that, and we're so happy to have you on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brad.
Yeah. So I, like you said, I'm a father of 4 young kids. My daughter is 10, Karen. My sons are 8, 6, and 4, Bennett, William, and Matthew. I'm sure they'll like to hear their names, so we'll have to play this for them. But they're wonderful and challenging as kids can be, but it's great to be a dad and try to find ways to bring them to the Lord. And so I first met Pam when she spoke at our parish a few years ago, and that encounter turned into a longer conversation, and I started helping Pam and Kim Scott, our family faith formation director, with some of the family talks that she was giving. And so we talked a lot about the saints, and how we can use the stories of the saints and the lives of the saints in our family discussion to introduce our faith and to introduce models to our children of ways we can love God and love each other. So I'm continuing to do that, hopefully bringing the faith to others and continuing to bring the faith to my children. And I'm really happy to be here.
I love that. I think when we have that good news and when we see it living out in our lives, we want to share that with others. Like, we want other people to have an experience of what it means to have Christ really alive in our families and in our own lives. And that's really, I think, the heart of what evangelization is all about, It's not about getting people to, sit in the pews and to put in the basket or whatever we want it to be. It's about getting people to encounter with Jesus. And I think first and foremost that happens in the home. Pope Francis says that the home is the first place that faith is learned. It's not in the church.
Yeah.
It's in the domestic church. In the
yeah.
home. And because it's the first place that we learn what it means to sacrifice for each other. And love is the fruit of that, When we see each other and when we're able to love and sacrifice for each other, God is there. And our families start to encounter God, and we can start to share him in that way. Very excited to have you both on today. I know that when we think about family life and marriage in our culture today, there's a lot of daunting things that can kind of come up. There's a lot of areas of fear and a lot of areas of anxiety. And this is the first time in the entire history, I think, of the world that children know more things about technology than parents do, which must throw you into a kind of a crazy thing. And even that, I've noticed that as a priest too, that the kids at the school know more about like using phones or the technology that's out there. I learned what apps are cool and in now from the kids at the school, and my work with the youth here. Also just like, our divorce rate in Orange County is so high. And the vast majority, at least 50% of our young people, even in the church, our percentages are not any better in the church in marriage as there are in the world, coming from broken experiences of families. The other day, I was giving a talk to a group, and I asked the kids, I said, how many of you want to have kids? And many of them, probably 75% of them raised their hands. And then I asked them, how many of you want to get married? And 2 of them rose their hands.
Wow.
And so we're going into an era, I think, in the world that we've kind of lost the value of that. And I think because we've lost kind of had the experience of its goodness, of its holiness, of its concern. So, I hate to start with the bad news, but I think starting with the bad news helps us to realize, like, this is something important.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge value in this. There's a huge value in investing in marriage and family life. And I think now is the time now's the time, because it's almost a retraining in bringing faith and family and letting them meet together in the context of our homes. And so I just invite you to share a little bit about, maybe in your own ministries or your own lives as parents, what do you see as some of the obstacles today, or some of the challenges that we face as a family, but also as a church in this area of marriage and family life?
Yes. I guess one of the biggest things I think in the Orange County family especially is this idea of kind of busyness. And I, when I'm talking to parents, many times they are describing their homes as chaotic and disconnected, and dropping kids off at things, and then when they get home, everybody's kind of in their room on their own computers. And I can see that, especially the parents that are raising kids still that are school age today. A lot of us as parents didn't have that experience ourselves. We weren't really pushed in this same way. And so I think there is this feeling of this doesn't feel right, but somehow I've been this is kind of what everybody's doing. This is kind of what everybody's doing. And so I see many of us as parents just kind of dropping our kids at things, signing them up, kind of almost like building resumes a little bit for them, with the right club teams and the right this and that. And in the midst of that, kind of allowing a lot of other people to maybe think that maybe they're getting discipline and they're getting, positive, that they're learning these things from other people. And that, I think the busyness, I know, Brad, you were saying, what does busy stand for?
Oh, yeah, I heard it recently, buried under Satan's yoke.
Yeah.
Wow.
And someone else was saying to me too, like, if God can't make you bad, he'll make you busy, and you'll be so dang busy that you can't do the things that, and I know for myself, what I love the most is when I actually, even with, my older kids now, get to be really in a conversation with them and be really present, have a meal around a table, just sitting. And then I sometimes sit and think, God, how do I get this? How does this get so robbed from me? And many times when I talk to parents, I laugh because they'll tell me, they're on the weekends, they're at a baseball game, and they're like, they're at a tournament, and they'll say, oh my gosh, we lost, the first game, and they'll kind of laugh and say, oh my God, I'm so happy because now we can just go home and spend time together, okay? And it's gotten almost like that. Like somehow someone has to give us permission. I was laughing the other day too because somebody was talking about snow days on the East Coast, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I just need a snow day. I just need a day where everybody has to stay home and we get to watch movies, even play games together. And then all of a sudden I thought, you know what, Pam, it doesn't have to snow for that to happen. I mean, you just need to make that happen. So I do think the busyness has got us kind of a little bit crazy. And I don't think I don't want to take it as a negative thing, because I think today's parents, we want to get it right. So in getting it right, we think we have to do all these things. So I think it's a piece of wanting to get it right, but in the midst of it, we're kind of losing the essence of what it means to be family.
Yeah. I think we want what's best for our kids. I think all parents want what's best for their kids. And so much about what you hear is, well, if they want to get into the right college, then they need to do the right activities. And if they want to get a scholarship, they need to do the sports and we want our kids to be successful. And I think we need to step back and think about what we want our kids to be successful at. And there are very positive aspects to organized sports and to other activities that our kids may be in, but we also want our kids to be successful in their faith, and we want them to spend time praying and seeking God, and spending time as a family where we learn about how God loves us. And so it's not wrong to do all these activities, but are they taking us from something better, I think, is a question we might ask. And so that was a question we asked ourselves as parents, my wife and I. And actually, we took a year off from organized sports this last year. Our kids aren't playing in any organized sports. And
Wow.
it's you tell people that, and they're like, "Oh,
Newport
really?
Beach.
It's crazy."
They think you're crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
probably even crazier than becoming a priest.
And,
you know?
and it was not difficult for us, I have to say, because our kids weren't like, they didn't get really upset about that. Like, they liked playing sports, but they didn't get mad at us for doing that. So it wasn't, this may not work for all families, but for our family, it was an opportunity for us to do things together on a Saturday, other than go sit at a soccer field or a baseball diamond. And so we go on family hikes, and one of the things we did was we'd go out in nature and maybe talk about St. Francis of Assisi and how he viewed nature and how he could talk to animals, and introduce our faith into these activities. Or we'd go down to the mission at San Juan Capistrano and just walk around the mission grounds, and then go over to the train station and watch the train go by, because the young boys love that. And just try to do family things that we'd be together doing. We found that when we would go to baseball games or soccer games, we'd sit there and one of the kids would be playing and the other three would just be sitting there, and we'd try to maybe do something with them, but it's hard because your attention is split between the game and cheering and those kinds of things, and your other kids who are just kind of sitting and watching. And so we wanted to do something that would incorporate the whole family and be an opportunity for a spiritual element as well. So trying to be creative in that sense has been a lot of fun this last year.
Awesome. You took the dive.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it
Yeah.
takes that to just stop out, and sometimes we have to kind of stop what we're doing, because sometimes it can be so multiplied with all of these things that we're just doing them because, like Pam said, we feel like we have to.
And I think people need to be told, like, it's okay to do that. Like your kids aren't going to, lose so much. They'll be gaining something else. And just someone saying, like, it's okay,
Permission.
Yeah.
You have permission to do this,
And an example.
Yeah.
It turned out okay.
Yeah,
Your kids are still good, right?
I mean, yeah, they haven't,
Okay.
become delinquents.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So-
I remember you coming up to me and at a talk, and he was kind of saying that. He was saying, we're thinking about pulling his daughter out of soccer, I think it was. And it almost like, and he was looking at me like, is it okay? And then I remember seeing him a few months later and saying, what did you guys decide? And I just remember so specifically when you were saying to me, we beat ourselves up about it so much until that first Saturday when we didn't have soccer, and we went on a hike together, and we never thought about it again. And I just thought, oh my gosh, making that decision for your family, and for yourselves and for your sanity and for your, and sometimes we just kind of almost, I think right now with the Instagram and all the different ways that we can kind of show everybody what our family's doing, that has become another whole race a little bit and I always want to see the full Instagram picture, that looks so perfect. I want to see the meltdown of the kids on, I want to see 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after. But I feel like there is a lot of pressure to make it look perfect also. And to, when we have a lot of ways to mark that now and to take pictures and videos and show ourselves doing these things. So, and if you don't, it's like, what are you doing? And it's, if you're not somehow producing. And so I think that's another pressure. I also, think the culture too, right now is another thing that a lot of, us as families are really struggling with. And that just like everything has really ramped up, in the last, with technology, especially with, these in devices in our kids' hands that we don't even totally understand. And, I know when I was a kid, I mean, just some of the TV programs and the things that we would watch were still really kind of, it spoke in positively into the family values and things like that. But now I just think the movies, the music, I mean, it's really tough for parents. The culture is not, backing off at all. I mean, it's introducing our kids. I was talking to a teacher who was saying she feels like, third graders are being introduced to things that eighth graders used to be talking about. And so just that difference also, I think, has families a little bit nervous and parents a little bit nervous. And it has me nervous with my own kids. And so I think technology and the culture, just the rapid movement of that also has really kind of affected family life too.
I'd like to thank Pam and Brad for their sacrifice of time to share with us their wisdom and insight on family life, both its challenges, but also its joys and the hope that a family full of faith can bring into this world. Next week, we continue with our conversation in some practical ways and how faith can take deep root in the lives of our families, especially in our children. There are no new building updates for this week. But until next time, thanks for listening in to
Rebuilt and renewed.
Bringing the word home.